Fuck. Hi. Hi. Hi there. Come on. Hey, do good stuff. I stay fucker. Come on. She wants to leave. Back into your world, little kitty. She's tons of fun. When you want to cuddle with somebody, she's right there. Meow. She's definitely a cuddler. She loves to cuddle.
Scottish bagpipes cover.
Here are some pictures that match.
Scottish bagpipes covered bar.
Showing pictures that match.
Scottish bagpipe cover bar. God damn it. Scottish bagpipes cover bar. Pub.
Showing pictures that match.
Scottish bagpipes the breed. Let's have some fun.
I found this in your locker.
College. I'm delicate. Old Spice invisible spray feels so good on my skin. It's the only option for me.
Alright then, get on back out there on the field.
12 men on the field. Number 58.
Come on,
I have two white millers coming out at once.
On Earth.
Here's a summary from ucmp.berkeley.edu. Over the last 3.7 billion years or so, living organisms on the Earth have diversified and adapted to almost every environment imaginable.
Volatility, to me, has always been an issue, like it is for every single investor. Smart investors learn how to live with it.
I think it's one of the more remarkable properties of life. Just taking mammals, that the largest mammal, the whale, is in terms of measurable quantities, that is of its physiology and its life history, is actually a scaled up version of the smallest mammal, which is actually the shrew, but a mouse is very close to that, and everything in between, but they are scaled versions of one another, and in a systematic, predictable way, to sort of 80-90% level. So the kinds of things that you might measure might be as mundane as the length of the aorta, which is the first tube coming out of your heart, or it could be something as sophisticated and complex as how long each one of these mammals, for example, is going to live, or how long it takes to mature. All of these things scale in a very predictable way, and they scale in a way that's non-linear. So even though it's simple, it's highly non-linear, and that can be expressed in the following way. So perhaps the most well-known of these is the scaling of metabolic rate. And metabolic rate is maybe the most fundamental quantity of life, because metabolic rate simply means how much energy, or maybe just how much food, does an animal need to eat each day in order to stay alive. Everybody's used to that, everybody's familiar with that, as sort of roughly 2,000 food calories a day for a human being. So you can ask, what is that for different mammals? And what you find is that they're related to one another in a very simple way, despite the fact that metabolism is maybe the most complex physical chemical process in the universe. It's phenomenal, because metabolism is taking essentially almost inorganic, something that's inorganic, and making it into life. So so here's this extraordinarily complex process, and yet it scales in a very simple way, and you can express it in English. It can be expressed quite precisely in a very simple mathematical equation, but in English it's roughly speaking that every time you double the size of an organism, from say 2 grams to 4 grams, or from 20 grams to 40 grams, or 20 kilograms to 40 kilograms, or whatever, and just doubling anywhere, instead of what you might naively expect, double the size, you double the number of cells, roughly speaking, therefore you would expect to double the amount of energy, the amount of metabolic energy you need to keep that organism alive, because you have twice as many cells. Quite the contrary, you don't need twice as much. Systematically, you only need, roughly speaking, 75% as much. So there's this kind of systematic 25%, 1/4, savings. And it turns out that anything else you measure, as I mentioned a moment ago, scales in a similar way, with this sort of 25% rule occurring in some interesting way. So, for example, if you take mammals, we have beating hearts. We have a circulatory system with a beating heart. So every time you double the size, there's a systematic decrease in heart rate. As most people are familiar with, an elephant's heart beats much slower than ours, and much slower. Ours beats much slower than a dog's or a mouse, for example, and that also obeys this kind of quarter power scaling. So in a very systematic way, we see this repetitive nature. And what is amazing about that is that each animal, each one of these animals, and by the way, it's not just true for animals; it's also true of plants and trees. But each one of these organisms, has evolved by natural selection. Each subsystem has evolved evolutionarily by natural selection. Each cell type, each genome that comprises of the organism has its own unique history, that has ended up being this particular organism. So you might have expected, in fact, you would sort of think of that, and often colloquially we think of it as some kind of random process, natural selection, and that you would therefore have expected, if you look at something like metabolic rate or length of aortas or whatever it is, lifespan, they would sort of be randomly distributed because they would simply represent or reflect the evolutionary history of that organism or of the components of that organism. Quite the contrary, as I say, it's not that. Somehow natural selection has been constrained by some underlying principles. And what I have spent quite a lot of time thinking about and developing a theoretical structure based on underlying principles and put into a mathematical framework for understanding where that regularity comes from and why it should be this number 1/4. Where does that magic number 4, so to speak, arise? And the work that I did with some marvelous biology colleagues, Jim Brown and Brian Enquist, we developed this what I consider very elegant theory that what these scaling laws are reflecting are in fact the generic universal mathematical physical properties of the multiple networks that make an organism viable and allow it to develop and grow and so on. And the ones that we're all familiar with, many of them, like our circulatory system and our respiratory system, but our neural system is like that, it transmits information. But these are networks that have evolved to distribute energy from something macroscopic, like a heart, a pool of blood, down to deliver oxygen to the cells by going through a hierarchical network, delivering, as I say, oxygen, resources, metabolic energy to the cells. And it is the universal properties, the universal mathematical properties of those networks that transcend the evolved design. So the same mathematical, and this is extremely important, it's the same mathematical and physical principles applied to a mammal, which has a beating heart, as applies to a tree. And a mammal, our circulatory system is a bunch of tubes, like in your house, the plumbing in this building that we're sitting in. That's our circulatory system. But a tree and a plant, they're not like that. They're a bunch of fiber bundles kind of joined together like electrical cables that spray out, and that's what you see when you see a tree. In each branch, there's actually just these fibers transporting fluid to the leaves and so on. But even though they don't have beating hearts, as we well know, and yet they satisfy the same mathematical principles. And those mathematical principles give rise to this quarter power scaling in mammals, but also in plants and trees, but also in fish and birds and crustacea in principle, and insects and so on. And that's the idea.
While the origin of life is unknown, many scientists have pondered the possibility that the seeds of life did not originate on Earth. And while many of the questions of where Earth's water came from are still unresolved, it's a widely accepted notion that when Earth was in its formative years 4 billion years ago, icy comets and asteroids rained down, bombarding the Earth and delivering water to the planet. If a lot of Earth's water came via comets, how possible is it that the first signs of life on our planet may not have originated on Earth, but could have flown in hitching a ride with meteorites? Could extraterrestrial microorganisms that crash-landed here be ancestors?
Using the world's most powerful radio telescope, scientists forecast that within 5 billion years, the sun will grow into a red giant star, 100 times its current size. The sun will swallow up and destroy its two closest planets, Mercury and Venus. All life on Earth is likely to be destroyed, but there is a possibility the rocky core of the planet could survive. In 7 billion years, the sun will then experience intense loss of mass, due to strong stellar winds that will see it evolve into a tiny white dwarf star. If the Earth's rocky core survives, it may continue to orbit the white dwarf star. The white dwarf star will be similar to Earth in size, but much heavier. 1 teaspoon of its matter will weigh about 5 tons. Grow into a
That's pretty insane right there. 1 teaspoon of the sun's matter after 5 billion years is gonna weigh 5 tons. 5 tons meaning 1 tablespoon weighing 10,000 pounds.
Red giant star. In the world's most powerful radio telescope, scientists forecast that within 5 billion years, the sun will grow into a red giant star, 100 times its current size. The sun will swallow up and destroy its two closest planets, Mercury and Venus. All life on Earth is likely to be destroyed, but there is a possibility the rocky core of the planet could survive. In 7 billion years, the sun will then experience intense loss of mass, due to strong stellar winds that will see it evolve into a tiny white dwarf star. If the Earth's rocky core survives, it may continue to orbit the white dwarf star. The white dwarf star will be similar to Earth in size, but much heavier. 1 teaspoon of its matter will weigh about 5 tons.
That's incredible. It's beyond comprehension. I don't think there's anything on this planet that is the size of a tablespoon and weighs over 10,000 pounds. Except for Sam Naga's ass.
4.5 billion years old, or approximately 1/3 the age of the whole universe, which does mean that Earth is quite an old place, with an enormous amount of changes during its whole history. It would be quite interesting to see what Earth was like when it was first formed. And in today's human history, we have some pretty accurate predictions of what it was like during that time. So in this video, I'm going to, let's say, go back in time when Earth was only 500 million years old, when things started to get going, and see what would it be like to spend a day
this is a giant vortex.
To be clear, a day on Earth 4 billion years ago wasn't 24 hours. It was around 6 hours. That means
your ass is a black hole.
Daylight. That is because of the moon, which was formed very close to Earth, and the forces of moon made a day on Earth very short. So, if you were to spend even few minutes on this early Earth, you would need an oxygen tank to survive. Because, well, the atmosphere wasn't made out of nitrogen and oxygen. It was made out of toxic chemicals because of the constant volcanic eruptions, so you wouldn't be able to breathe. Temperatures on this early Earth are much higher due to volcanic activity, so standing on this early Earth wouldn't be very pleasant. Landscape throughout the Earth would be very barren and very rocky, with an occasional volcano and a lava lake. Also be aware, Earth was constantly bombarded with meteorites and asteroids at this time, so rock could fall on your head at any time. Earthquakes as well would be more common. Basically, the whole Earth would be unstable. Interestingly, there was water on Earth even 4 billion years ago. That likely came because of the comets that smashed onto Earth, containing water ice that unfroze, and there likely were oceans. Standing by the shores on these oceans could be very dangerous, as tides and waves would be many times bigger than they are today. Basically, tsunamis on Earth were a common thing. Still, it would be interesting to see that. Looking up at the sky, it would likely be hazy at times and at times clear, but the most notable difference is that the moon would appear extremely large. That is because it would be only 25,000 kilometers away from Earth, compared to 38,000 kilometers away, which is its current distance from Earth. That is because moon formed very close to Earth at the beginning. It formed when a Mars-sized object hit the Earth, and from the pieces that were shattered during the collision is what moon formed out of. So because moon was so close, you could feel forces of the moon pretty easily, which is what causes these high waves and tides on Earth. Looking at the moon from early Earth, you could even see volcanoes erupting on moon, and every detail of the moon would be staggeringly clear. In case you were to bring some microscope and you were by the shores of some small salty lake, and by examining the rock, you could by sheer luck spot the earliest forms of life on Earth. Because 4 billion years ago is when the first forms of life appeared on Earth. There is fossil evidence suggesting that. Using a microscope, you could spot these primitive life forms and see what jump-started all of the life we can see, what we as humans once were. So yeah, going back in time to spend a day on the early Earth, we would be rewatching what our home planet once was, and as we can see, it changed drastically. Just to think that in the same place you're standing on right now, and going back in time 4 billion years ago in the same place, you wouldn't be even able to breathe and would likely die within minutes. Our home planet sure did drastically change into a welcoming environment. And thanks to that change, I am here talking about what Earth once was.
Using the world's most powerful radio telescope, scientists forecast that within 5 billion years,
biggest stars in the universe compare size.
Here's a summary from latest science space high-tech news. The below is the list of top 10 largest stars known in the universe, VY Canis Majoris, and more.
change. The slower your heart beats, the bigger you are. The slower your heart beats, the longer you live. The bigger you are, the longer you live. It's a very good theory, and I'm for it. I mean, Sam Naga's gonna live longer than I am. But that's okay, because he's a dumb Mexican. Jim Carrey speech. A Jim Carrey speech. Jim Carrey speech.
Here's a matching video.
Man on earth, a performer of legendary comic genius, a children's book author of profound depth, an individual of enormous compassion who is doing so much to make our world a better place. The great Jim Carrey.
Stretch that out in post, right? You can make that longer in the edit. Thank you, Bevin. Thank you all. J Guru Dev. I brought one of my paintings to show you today. I hope you guys are going to be able to see it okay. It's not one of my bigger pieces, so you might want to move down front. Get a good look at it. Faculty, parents, friends, dignified guests, graduating class of 2014. And all the dead baseball players coming out of the corn to be with us today. After the harvest, there's no place for them to hide. Fields are empty. There's no cover there. I'm here to plant a seed today. A seed that will inspire you to move forward in life with enthusiastic hearts and a clear sense of wholeness. The question is, will that seed have a chance to take root? Or will I be sued by Monsanto and forced to use their seed? Which may not be totally Ayurvedic. Excuse me if I seem a little bit low energy today, whatever this is. I slept with my head to the north last night. Oh man! Oh man! You know how that is, right kids? Yeah. Woke up right in the middle of Pitta, couldn't get back to sleep till Vata rolled around. Crazy. But I didn't freak out, you know. I used that time to eat a large meal. Connect with someone special on Tinder. Because life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. How do I know this? I don't, but I'm making sound, and that's the important thing. That's what I'm here to do. Sometimes I think that's the only thing that's important, really. You know? It's just letting each other know we're here. Reminding each other that we're part of a larger self. I used to think Jim Carrey is all that I was. Just a flickering light. A dancing shadow. The great nothing masquerading as something you can name. Seeking shelter in caves and foxholes dug out hastily. An archer searching for his target in the mirror. Wounded only by my own arrows. Begging to be enslaved. Pleading for my chains. Blinded by longing and tripping over paradise. You didn't think I could be serious, did you? I don't think you understand who you're dealing with. I have no limits. I cannot be contained because I'm the container. You can't contain the container, man. You can't contain the container. I used to believe that who I was ended at the edge of my skin. That I had been given this little vehicle called a body from which to experience creation. And though I couldn't have asked for a sportier model. It was, after all, a loaner and would have to be returned. Then I learned that everything outside the vehicle was part of me too. And now I drive a convertible. Yeah, man. Top down, wind of my hair. Woo! I am elated and truly excited to be present and fully connected to you at this important moment in your journey. I hope you're ready to open the roof and take it all in. Okay, 4 more years then. They're obviously not ready. Just need some more cutting. Now, I want to thank the trustees, the administrators, the faculty of MUM for creating an institution worthy of Maharishi's ideals of education. A place that teaches knowledge and experience, the knowledge and experience necessary to be productive in life, as well as enabling the students through transcendental meditation and ancient Vedic knowledge to slack off twice a day for an hour and a half. Don't think you're fooling me. But I guess it has some benefits. It does allow you to separate who you truly are and what's real from the stories that run through your head. You have given them the ability to walk behind the mind's elaborate set decoration and to see that there's a huge difference between a dog that is going to eat you in your mind and an actual dog that is going to eat you. That may sound like no big deal, but many never learn that distinction. And they spend a great deal of their lives living in fight or flight response. I'd like to acknowledge all of you wonderful parents. Way to go. Fantastic job you've done. For your tireless dedication, your love, your support, most of all, for the attention that you pay to your children. I have a saying, beware the unloved, because they will eventually hurt themselves or me. But when I look at this group here, you know, I feel really safe. I do. I'm just going to say it. My room is not locked. My room is not locked. No doubt some of you will turn out to be crooks. But white watched the effect of my father's love and humor and how it altered the world around me. And I thought, that's something to do. That's something worth my time. When I was about 28, after a decade as a professional comedian, I realized one night in LA that the purpose of my life had always been to free people from concern, just like my dad. I did something that made people present their best selves to me wherever I go. How will you serve the world? What do they need that your talent can provide? That's all you have to figure out. I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. Because ultimately, we're not the avatars we create. We're not the pictures on the film stock. We are the light that shines through. All else is just smoke and mirrors, distracting, but not truly compelling. That piece that we're after lies somewhere beyond personality, beyond the perception of others, beyond invention and disguise, even beyond effort itself. You can join the game, fight the wars, play with form all you want, but to find real peace, you have to let the armor go. Your need for acceptance can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of the light that shines through this form. Risk being seen in all of your glory. I've often said that I wished people could realize all their dreams and wealth and fame, and so that they could see that it's not where you're going to find your sense of completion. Like many of you, I was concerned about going out into the world and doing something bigger than myself, until someone smarter than myself made me realize that there is nothing bigger than myself. Our eyes are not viewers, they are also projectors that are running a second story over the picture that we see in front of us all the time. Fear is writing that script, and the working title is, I'll Never Be Enough. I'm just making a conscious choice to perceive challenges as something beneficial so that I can deal with them in the most productive way. You'll come up with your own style. That's part of the fun. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. You will only ever have two choices, love or fear. Choose love, and don't ever let fear turn you against your playful heart. All that will be left of you is what was in your heart. My soul is not contained within the limits of my body. My body is contained within the limitlessness of my soul. You can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. Relax and dream up a good life. You can spend your whole life imagining ghosts, worrying about the pathway to the future, but all there will ever be is what's happening here, and the decisions we make in this moment, which are based in either love or fear. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it. I'm saying, I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it.
Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail again, fail better. I had so many dreams of where I wanted to go, who I wanted to be, and what I wanted to do. You have your own story to tell. theater companies I wanted to start with classmates, movies I wanted to be in, directors I wanted to work with, stories I needed to tell. I packed the life that I knew with socks and a toothbrush into my backpack, and I slept on couch after couch after couch after couch at friends' apartments in New York until I wore out their rent-paying roommates' welcome. I didn't want a day job. I was an actor. I was a writer. I had to get a day job. I dusted pianos at a piano store on Ludlow Street for 5 months. I worked on the property of a Shakespeare scholar for a year, pulling weeds and removing bees' nests. I went on unemployment once, but not for long. I couldn't handle the guilt. Eventually, I was able to pay rent for a spot on the floor of an apartment on the Lower East Side, but my roommate had a breakdown and disappeared. I helped hang paintings at galleries, paintings that inspire you to think, I could do that. And then, finally, after 2 years of job and couch surfing, I got a job in application processing as a data enterer at a place called Professional Examination Services. And I stayed for 6 years. 6 years. From the age of 23 to 29. Well, they loved me there. I was funny. I smoked in the loading docks with the guys from the mailroom, and we shared how hungover we all were. I called in sick almost every Friday because I was out late the night before. I hated that job, and I clung to that job. Because of that job, I could afford my own place. My dream of running a theater company with my friend and fellow Bennington graduate Ian Bell had died. I had only the one window. I myself could not look out the window. It was quite high. No acting agent. When I was 29, I told myself, the next acting job I get, no matter what it pays, I will, from now on, for better or worse, be a working actor. But something good happened. I got a low-paying theater job in a play called Imperfect Love, which led to a film called 13 Moons with the same writer, which led to other roles, which led to other roles. And I've worked as an actor ever since. I didn't know that would happen. At 29, walking away from data processing, I was terrified. 10 years in a place without heat, 6 years at a job I felt stuck in. Maybe I was afraid of change. Are you? But this made me very hungry. Literally. I couldn't be lazy. I couldn't be. And so at 29, at a very long last, I was in the company of the actors and writers and directors I'd sought out that first year, that first day after school. I am by their sides. raise the rest of your life to meet you. Don't search for defining moments because they will never come. The moments that define you have already happened, and they will already happen again. And it passes so quickly, so please bring each other along with you. You just get a bit derailed. But soon something starts to happen. Trust me. A rhythm sets in. Just try not to wait until, like me, you're 29 before you find it. And if you are, that's fine too. Some of us never find it. But you will. I promise you. You are already here. You'll find your rhythm or continue the one you have already found. Don't wait until they tell you you are ready. Get in there. Sing. The world might say you are not allowed to yet. I waited a long time out in the world before I gave myself permission to fail. Please, don't even bother asking. Don't bother telling the world you are ready. Show it. Do it. What did Beckett say? Ever try, ever fail. No matter. Try again. Fail again. Fail better. We burn very brightly. Please don't ever stop. The world is yours. Treat everyone kindly and light up the night. Maybe I was afraid of change. Are you?
Tell Australia I said hi. Clappy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you, President Powers, Provost Fenves, deans, members of the faculty, family, and friends, and most importantly, the class of 2014. It is indeed an honor for me to be here tonight. It's been almost 37 years to the day that I graduated from UT. I remember a lot of things about that day. I remember I had a throbbing headache from a party the night before. I remember I had a serious girlfriend who I later married. That's important to remember, by the way. And I remember I was getting commissioned in the Navy that day. But of all the things I remember, I don't have a clue who the commencement speaker was, and I certainly don't remember anything they said. So acknowledging that fact, if I can't make this commencement speech memorable, I will at least try to make it short. So the university slogan is, what starts here changes the world. Well, I've got to admit, I kind of like it. What starts here changes the world. Tonight there are almost 8,000 students, or there are more than 8,000 students graduated from UT. So that great paragon of analytical rigor, Ask.com, says that the average American will meet 10,000 people in their lifetime. 10,000 people, that's a lot of folks. But if every one of you changed the lives of just 10 people, and each one of those people changed the lives of another 10 people, and another 10, then in 5 generations, 125 years, the class of 2014 will have changed the lives of 800 million people. 800 million people. Think about it. Over twice the population of the United States. Go one more generation, and you can change the entire population of the world. 8 billion people. If you think it's hard to change the lives of 10 people, change their lives forever, you're wrong. I saw it happen every day in Iraq and Afghanistan. A young Army officer makes a decision to go left instead of right down a road in Baghdad, and the 10 soldiers with him are saved from a close-in ambush. In Kandahar province, Afghanistan, a non-commissioned officer from the female engagement team senses that something isn't right and directs the infantry platoon away from a 500-pound IED, saving the lives of a dozen soldiers. But if you think about it, not only were those soldiers saved by the decisions of one person, but their children were saved, and their children's children. Generations were saved by one decision, one person. But changing the world can happen anywhere, and anyone can do it. So what starts here can indeed change the world. But the question is, what will the world look like after you change it? Well, I'm confident that it will look much, much better. But if you'll humor this old sailor for just a moment, I have a few suggestions that may help you on your way to a better world. And while these lessons were learned during my time in the military, I can assure you that it matters not whether you ever served a day in uniform. It matters not your gender, your ethnic or religious background, your orientation, or your social status. Our struggles in this world are similar, and the lessons to overcome those struggles and to move forward, changing ourselves and changing the world around us, will apply equally to all. I've been a Navy SEAL for 36 years, but it all began when I left UT for basic SEAL training in Coronado, California. Basic SEAL training is 6 months of long, torturous runs in the soft sand, midnight swims in the cold water off San Diego, obstacle courses, unending calisthenics, days without sleep, and always being cold, wet, and miserable. It is 6 months of being constantly harassed by professionally trained warriors who seek to find the weak of mind and body and eliminate them from ever becoming a Navy SEAL. But the training also seeks to find those students who can lead in an environment of constant stress, chaos, failure, and hardships. To me, basic SEAL training was a lifetime of challenges crammed into 6 months. So here are the 10 lessons I learned from basic SEAL training that hopefully will be of value to you as you move forward in life. Every morning in SEAL training, my instructors, who at the time were all Vietnam veterans, would show up in my barracks room, and the first thing they'd do was inspect my bed. If you did it right, the corners would be square, the covers would be pulled tight, the pillow centered just under the headboard, and the extra blanket folded neatly at the foot of the rack. It was a simple task, mundane at best, but every morning we were required to make our bed to perfection. It seemed a little ridiculous at the time, particularly in light of the fact that we were aspiring to be real warriors, tough, battle-hardened SEALs. But the wisdom of this simple act has been proven to me many times over. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. So if you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. During SEAL training, the students are all broken down into boat crews. Each crew is 7 students, 3 on each side of a small rubber boat, and 1 coxswain to help guide the dinghy. Every day your boat crew forms up on the beach and is instructed to get through the surf zone and paddle several miles down the coast. In the winter, the surf off San Diego can get to be 8 to 10 feet high, and it is exceedingly difficult to paddle through the plunging surf unless everyone digs in. Every paddle must be synchronized to the stroke count of the coxswain. Everyone must exert equal effort, or the boat will turn against the wave and be unceremoniously dumped back on the beach. For the boat to make it to its destination, everyone must paddle. You can't change the world alone. You will need some help. And to truly get from your starting point to your destination takes friends, colleagues, the goodwill of strangers, and a strong coxswain to guide you. If you want to change the world, find someone to help you paddle. Over a few weeks of difficult training, my SEAL class, which started with 150 men, was down to just 42. There were now 6 boat crews of 7 men each. I was in the boat with the tall guys, but the best boat crew we had was made up of the little guys, the Munchkin crew, we called them. No one was over 5'5". The Munchkin boat crew had 1 American Indian, 1 African American, 1 Polish American, 1 Greek American, 1 Italian American, and 2 tough kids from the Midwest. They out-paddled, outran, and outswam all the other boat crews. The big men in the other boat crews would always make good-natured fun of the tiny little flippers the Munchkins put on their tiny little feet prior to every swim. But somehow these little guys from every corner of the nation and the world always had the last laugh, swimming faster than everyone and reaching the shore long before the rest of us. SEAL training was a great equalizer. Nothing mattered but your will to succeed, not your color, not your ethnic background, not your education, not your social status. If you want to change the world, measure a person by the size of their heart, not by the size of their flippers. Several times a week, the instructors would line up the class and do a uniform inspection. It was exceptionally thorough. Your hat had to be perfectly starched, your uniform immaculately pressed, your belt buckle shiny and void of any smudges. But it seemed that no matter how much effort you put into starching your hat, or pressing your uniform, or polishing your belt buckle, it just wasn't good enough. The instructors would find something wrong. For failing the uniform inspection, the student had to run, fully clothed, into the surf zone. Then wet from head to toe, roll around on the beach until every part of your body was covered with sand. The effect was known as sugar cookie. You stayed in the uniform the rest of the day, cold.
How Google Duo helps you call your friends on Android. Wait, that's it?
Cold, wet, and sandy. There were many a student who just couldn't accept the fact that all their efforts were in vain, that no matter how hard they tried to get the uniform right, it went unappreciated. Those students didn't make it through training. Those students didn't understand the purpose of the drill. You were never going to succeed. You were never going to have a perfect uniform. The instructors weren't going to allow it. Sometimes, no matter how well you prepare or how well you perform, you still end up as a sugar cookie. It's just the way life is sometimes. If you want to change the world, get over being a sugar cookie and keep moving forward. Every day during training, you were challenged with multiple physical events: long runs, long swims, obstacle courses, hours of calisthenics, something designed to test your mettle. Every event had standards, times you had to meet. If you failed to meet those times, those standards, your name was posted on a list, and at the end of the day, those on the list were invited to a circus. A circus was 2 hours of additional calisthenics, designed to wear you down, to break your spirit, to force you to quit. No one wanted a circus. A circus meant that for that day, you didn't measure up. A circus meant more fatigue, and more fatigue meant that the following day would be more difficult, and more circuses were likely. But at some time during SEAL training, everyone made the circus list. But an interesting thing happened to those who were constantly on the list. Over time, those students
Greatest Dad on Earth music video. Shit. Greatest Dad on Earth music video.
Showing pictures that match.
The world's greatest dad music video.
Here are some matching videos.
About what I thought or felt while I was alive. Besides, you're all too shallow to comprehend the pain I feel.
I hope I become a ghost. I hope I can see the end of time. I hope I become a ghost and make sure the future turns out fine. I hope I become a ghost. When the world is said and done, the stars will become so close, and there will be nowhere that I can run.
best dad a kid could want. I blame me doing this on a defect in me.
In my soul. I'm sorry.
Brings me to you, Dad. Don't blame yourself. You tried hard and were the best dad a kid could want. I blame you doing this on a defect in me.
In my soul. I'm sorry.
Can I help you?
They've come to see me.
Do you really? Introducing Del Taco's Queso Blanco, made with a creamy blend of real cheese and peppers. Try it in our queso.
My name is Lance Clayton. My biggest fear in life is that I'm going to end up all alone. Ernest Hemingway once said, all he wanted to do was write one true sentence. He also tried to scratch an itch in the back of... My name is Lance Clayton. You were up early.
You're not funny.
Okay. What am I thinking?
Don't be afraid, you're already dead. Don't be afraid, you're already Love is simple. Love is simple. Love is Don't be out.
David Bowie, The Labyrinth. What's up?
Here are some pictures that match.
David Bowie, The Labyrinth, End.
According to Wikipedia, David Robert Jones, known professionally as David Bowie, was an English.
David Bowie, The Labyrinth, End.
Give me the child.
Sarah, beware. I have been generous up until now. But I can be cruel.
Generous. What have you done that's generous?
Everything. Everything that you wanted, I have done. You asked that the child be taken. I took him. You cowered before me. I was frightened. I have reordered time. I have turned the world upside down. And I have done it all for you. I'm exhausted from living up to your expectations. Isn't that generous?
Through dangers untold and hardships unnumbered, I have fought my way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City. For my will is as strong as yours. And my
Wait. Look, Sarah. Look what I'm offering. Your dreams.
and my kingdom is great.
I ask for so little. Just let me rule you. And you can have everything that you want.
Kingdom is great. Damn. I never remember that line.
Just fear me. Love me. Do as I say, and I will be your slave.
My kingdom is great. You have no power over me.
Facing a nightmare is not knowing what's true. Imagine if you would suddenly learn that the people, the places, the moments most important to you are not gone, not dead, but worse, they've never been.
It isn't real.
Sad.
He's transformed into someone that I love. And I'm transformed into someone who loves him. I know what's real. This is real. I need to believe that something extraordinary is possible.
Start with the good, and the good will come back to you. Good goes around and around.
Labyrinth has its 30th anniversary later this year, so we had already planned to do this episode down the line. Back when we did our Edward Scissorhands episode, a metric ton of you guys were super down for us to follow it up with Beetlejuice. Well, ask and you shall receive, assuming we feel like it, which we do in this instance. Here are 9 things you didn't know about Beetlejuice. Probably.
It's showtime.
Rumors of a Beetlejuice sequel are pretty much the internet's version of herpes. Just when you forget about it, there's another flare-up. Even now, there's a holding page on IMDb for a Beetlejuice 2, since Tim Burton and Winona Ryder have both more than hinted at it happening. In the event any of this turns out to be true, let's just hope that they've changed the sequel concept from what they had planned back in the 80s. See, there's been talk of a Beetlejuice sequel since Beetlejuice, but Tim Burton quickly became busy with Batman Returns, and it never got off the ground. The pitch? Beetlejuice goes Hawaiian.
I'm the ghost with the most man.
I wish I was kidding, but I definitely am not. Tim Burton liked the idea of juxtaposing a surf movie with German expressionism, because it doesn't work at all. And that was how they came up with the plot revolving around the Dietzes opening a fancy hotel on a Hawaiian island. But then, see, there are a bunch of ancient Hawaiian ghosts that don't like any of this at all, so they seek Beetlejuice's help to scare them away. Blah, 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 Beetlejuice does what he does best, creating chaos across the whole island, of course, only after turning himself into something called Jucifer. In the end, Lydia saves the day by conjuring a tsunami to wipe out all the demons on the island. At this point, I will remind you that they were really going to make this movie. I think we can all agree that it's a really good thing that they didn't. Next thing, please. Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian sounds like a list of everything that could have gone wrong with the sequel, but the original film somehow got everything right, especially Beetlejuice himself. It's arguably Michael Keaton's best performance ever, which is why you might be surprised to find out how little he's actually in the movie. You know how the shark is barely in Jaws? Well, it's kind of the same deal here. Beetlejuice doesn't even show up until we're past the 25-minute mark, and he has less than 18 minutes of screen time in the entire 92-minute film. Keaton was able to shoot his entire role in just 2 weeks.
Good thing, too. I gotta do a photo shoot for GQ in about an hour and a half.
It was originally going to be even less screen time for the ghost with the most, but test audiences liked the characters so much the filmmakers went back to shoot this one extra scene for the ending, with Beetlejuice in the waiting room. By the way, we have another thing about this very scene. In fact, it's our next thing.
You don't have an appointment.
I'm sure you all remember the magician's assistant in the waiting room. The old getting sawed in half trick obviously didn't work out in her favor, but most people don't know that the lower half was played by Tim Burton's then girlfriend, which means that those are the director's girlfriend's legs that Michael Keaton is feeling up in this scene, all while Tim Burton watched quietly. Not weird at all. Beetlejuice is one of the greats movie-wise, but its production history really does prove that it's kind of a miracle that we get any good movies ever. For one, Beetlejuice wasn't even supposed to be comedic. Instead, he was going to be a winged demon, and when he was in his human form, he was going to be a small Middle Eastern man. The script was originally horror, with the Maitland's car crash being way more graphic, and with Beetlejuice being a straight-up rapist and murderer. After deciding that might not exactly be fun for the whole family, they switched writers, making the character and the overall film more lighthearted. Beetlejuice became a pigeon-speaking, wisecracking ghost rather than, you know, a bloodthirsty demon sex offender.
I'm not exposing that little girl to that pervert.
At one point, Tim Burton had wanted to pursue Sammy Davis Jr. for the role. Sam Kinison and Dudley Moore were also on the shortlist, but producer David Geffen suggested Michael Keaton, and the rest is history, and that is a bonus that you didn't know. Remember when Beetlejuice turns into the snake? Well, you may not have known that this scene was actually shot before they'd even cast Michael Keaton. As a result, the animatronic snake they used originally didn't look like it, because, you know, they didn't know who Beetlejuice was yet. Once Keaton had been cast, they went back and shot some stop-motion animation with the snake we see here. This way, the filmmakers could be sure that the audience would understand that Beetlejuice is the snake. Otherwise, it might have seemed like just some rando snake demon from the Netherworld was terrorizing the house. And that would be bad.
We come for your niner, Chuck.
Delia's fashion choices are a memorable undercurrent throughout the film. There aren't too many characters you see wearing gloves as a headpiece.
I can't believe we're eating kids. Is there no sexual order?
Or turning a sweater into pants. The pants Delia is wearing in the scene are actually Charles's sweater from this scene earlier. The sweater's just been turned upside down so the armholes are now leg holes, and then it's held up with suspenders. Not too sure what she did about the neck hole turned crotch hole, though. Let's talk about a couple of inadvertent Easter eggs. Or maybe they were totally advertent. Who can say? Also, advertent probably isn't a word. Anyway, we're talking about this scene where Beetlejuice is finally getting his chance to do his bioexorcism. He's got those little bat wings on his ears, which weirdly foreshadowed Michael Keaton's next big movie role, Batman. As if that weren't enough, there's also a very Batman-esque ornament on the very top of Beetlejuice's carousel headpiece. Then underneath that thing that totally isn't the Batman logo, you can see there's a skull that looks a hell of a lot like Jack Skellington. And this was a good 5 years before The Nightmare Before Christmas, making this the slowest of burns. You might be surprised to hear that Beetlejuice is actually rated PG, especially with moments like this.
Nice f***ing model!
The PG-13 rating had been created some 4 years prior, but Beetlejuice somehow slipped by with the PG rating despite having an F-bomb. It would never happen again today, but this is just one of a select few movies that somehow got one past the MPAA. And by one, I mean one f***. Conversely, since that just got censored, we're not able to get one past the Cinefix overlords. Last f***ing thing. Beetlejuice is named after the star. You know, the one that's the second brightest star in the Orion constellation? Yeah, that one. And within the movie, as well as the end credits, his name is spelled the same way as the star. So why is it spelled, you know, Beetle Space Juice on the title cards? Because people are f***ing stupid. Okay, that's not the official answer, but hey, they even joke about not knowing how to pronounce Beetlejuice in the movie.
Beetle gun. Say his name.
So ultimately, they spelled it the way they did in the film's title, 1, for easier marketing, and 2, because it's funnier that way. As far as answering why there's a space in Beetlejuice on the movie's opening title cards, but not one on any of the Beetlejuice posters or DVD cases or even IMDb, well, it's probably because someone somewhere screwed up, and now we're stuck with this weird discrepancy forever. Even though we went all out and did a niner this week, we have a couple more Beetlejuice things that we dug up, so...
My cell phone is dying. Almost in the morning.
usually.
I'm not